Okay. Welcome, Zoe Paliare, life coach. I know, sorry, Zoe is laughing to herself. First of all, we're twinning today, which is like the geekiest thing ever.
And it's your responsibility to change because we're at your house.
Is it my response?
Yeah, I don't have my wardrobe here.
Go to my closet. You help yourself to literally everything in my room and bathroom all the time. Don't even act bashful all of a sudden.
Like I could grab another sweater.
You literally have grabbed underwear in the past. Like you really have no shame.
That's probably
So you could have changed as well.
okay, so it's equally on me.
And then we just changed positions too, which really threw everyone off.
I'm loving it over here. You've just had the good seat the whole time.
I find them to be the same. I'm happy to switch.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to change the feng shui. Imagine you become more like Barbara and I become more like, I talk about like the craziest things. Maybe it's just the seats we're in.
Day?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
Let's see how it goes.
I'm really excited to be here to find out.
I'm so sorry, Zoe. That was a horrible introduction, but we're so happy to have you on the podcast. You are a life coach, career coach.
Yep.
I feel like you're
leadership
a
and
jack
business
of all
coach.
trades
Yeah.
in the career department.
Yeah.
It's mixed with entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You're a little entrepreneur.
You do a lot.
Yeah, I do a lot.
You own a couple wax on bars, you were just saying.
Yep.
And you are also starting a new business.
I am, yeah.
Okay. Well, we can talk a bit about the new business, but maybe should we talk about some, like how you got into the life coaching aspect?
We can for sure.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of a weird answer, but like I feel like I was born a coach. So like the way that I naturally engage with people is really like curious and always kind of wanting to help people
Yeah.
figure
that is
out where they're
true.
going.
That is who you are.
Yeah.
Zoe and I, backstory, we actually went to Neuchâtel together. We lived in Switzerland together.
had no idea.
There you
Yeah.
go. Yeah, same year, baby.
Okay, because I
let's
know
go.
that you had spoken to Zoe kind of after, everything happened with the business
Yeah.
and, all that stuff. So I just assumed that you had
That's our
kind of,
connect.
that's
our
our connection, but
Yeah.
the background. Okay,
Yeah,
wow.
we've known each other for years.
And-
Along with Lexi, we have a funny OG crew.
Yeah.
Jordan
Lex-
Klein,
sorry, Lexi.
Lexi Miles,
Was it
Wax on?
Neuchâtel?
Neuchâtel, our crew.
What?
Maddie Levinson. Like it's there was like our year was very
Best.
Kate Best.
Guys, that sounds like a really fun time.
Harley
It was
Brand.
amazing. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
it's
all
such a
these
fun
shout
crew,
outs.
I know.
Wow. Okay.
It was a good crew. Serena. We could go on.
Serena Vanderwoodson? Serena.
Yes, actually.
It's
No.
like her last name is kind
Like
of
Lively?
No.
Yeah.
Sophie and Shui.
Yeah.
It's all coming back
Wow.
to me, right?
All these random
And like we know Shui because
From
of
Greenhouse.
Hannah and Greenhouse,
Yeah.
which is very funny. All these walks of life, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. A lot of female founders came out of that trip.
Yes.
A lot of female founders.
Yeah.
There you go. True.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were also saying that you do a lot of consulting with founders and with corporate, right? It's not
Yeah.
just one-on-one, but it's also with companies that you work with.
Yeah, I consult on strategy and people and culture and really helping people through their growth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Background with before this, even though you were born to be a coach. Oh, I just did the voice again. Shit. Okay, my goal was not
Yeah.
to do these
Lanny was a
voices.
little barky the last podcast, so we're trying to
Yeah, I don't know what came.
maybe sound a little more delicate.
I don't think I can do that.
No, I think that's just your natural
Just
tone.
don't do other voices. Keep to my own and I'll be good.
Yeah.
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 Where was I again?
Before
about-
you
before-
were born to be an entrepreneur.
Before you were born to be an entrepreneur, you were a lawyer, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You went into law school, lawyer. Okay. And how long did you practice for?
I practiced for almost 5 years.
Okay. And
Um,
what type of law?
I did civil litigation. I did like commercial, basically like I was a trial lawyer,
Okay.
not criminal.
And you were enjoying it or?
I loved the strategy and I loved the advocacy, but I didn't love sitting in my office reading and writing
Got it.
all day. It was boring and not for me.
Okay.
But boring isn't really fair. Like I'm sure some people
No,
find
for
it
sure. But it was
interesting,
boring
for
too.
me-
Yeah. And so at the 5-year mark, you were like, what's going on? You were just
Yeah.
like, it's time to make some
Yeah,
changes.
I was like, I can't do this anymore. And when I kind of floated to a couple of friends that I was thinking about leaving law to become a coach, they were like, that makes a lot of sense. And I was like, oh, okay.
That's so interesting because I feel like, I mean, I don't know most people, but when you're looking to leave kind of like a stable career, I don't know, I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, I don't know, maybe that's a little
Don't.
risky or don't. I don't know. I'm thinking of like my parents. I'm just thinking it's definitely the more traditional career path. So
Yeah.
and I feel like that's what a lot of people do struggle with. At least that's what, I mean, we've kind of talked about it personally, but like I'm turning 40 next year and a lot of my friends are either in their late 30s or early 40s. And I feel like they're really at a crossroads with their
next year.
Did I say next year? I'm turning 40 in 10 years.
I believe you're turning 40 in
like a week.
In a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think it's like this real crossroads of like leaving careers, leaving something stable, doing something new, like on this different path. And I feel like we kind of talked about it with your dad a bit, where it's like, people aren't staying in careers for like 40 years anymore.
Yeah.
Like times are very different. And I think on the one hand, it's amazing, but I think on the other, it's causing a lot of stress and anxiety and just uncertainty for so many people. So I don't know. I kind of just goes back to what you were saying, where it was like, everyone was like, cool, you want to be a life coach? That's awesome. But I feel like most people are not like, I'm going to leave this stable career and do something totally different and unknown and not stable.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. And actually, when I made the decision to leave, I ended up having conversations with so many lawyers who were like, how did you do it? And I was like, well, I just did.
Right.
But like, there are a lot of unhappy people in their careers.
Right.
Yeah.
there's so much, like, it's a hard thing to measure, right? Because there's so many things that come along with that. When you have the responsibilities, yourself, your family, all these things to take care of. And it's a really, like with anything, it's a really hard thing to measure, right? So it takes a lot. So I commend you for doing that and starting your own business. And I think that's incredible.
Yeah.
We're starting a lot of new journeys ourselves. So it is, it's very relevant that you're here and it's on our top of mind too, because of all the transitions that are happening. So
Yeah. And and that's why we wanted to have you on. Cause like I said, Lanny met with you kind of like back in January. And I feel like for us personally, I mean, I can speak for myself. It's like, we've had this brand for 10 years. There is now so much uncertainty, everyone's like, what's next? Like, we're so excited. And it's just like, first of all, we're not sure. There's a lot of different options and opportunities with the business and separately. And I think for us, it's like, we're so tied to our brand. Like, our brand is us. And like, you are Annie, I am Ren. We have a kind of public profile. People know us. So I think that also comes with added pressure. And, I don't know what my question is, but it's basically just like, we are at this crossroads. Like, I personally have, a bit of anxiety, which I've never really had. And I feel a lot of uneasiness kind of like about the next steps. And I guess if I was coming to you, right? Like, if someone in their career was coming to you where they're at a crossroads and they're like, I'm uncertain, I'm either not happy or I'm having a career change, where do you start with someone? Like, what's the starting point?
I think the starting point really is, what do you love doing? So like, if there are no barriers to entry to anything,
Right.
like, what do you dream about? What do you really enjoy as a starting point?
Well,
yeah.
You go, Annie. What do you dream? What do you really enjoy? What do you dream? Like,
Ooh,
are we having a working session here? Should we figure some shit out during this podcast?
That's what if we're gonna just talk openly, which I think we both are comfortable to do, that's literally, I was having a huge crossroads in my life personally, and there were so many parts of the business that we had built together. I mean, our business had evolved so much over the years, right?
Yeah.
We started as this
Maternity.
niche, this
Maternity.
niche business, retail, when we were doing, basically you and I were on the floor every day doing sales, working with people, hands-on, running, like the two of us and typically one employee for a very long time. And it was amazing and it was very rewarding, and it shifted. We launched e-commerce, we, pandemic, changed things, ended up had more influence than we thought, and all this kind of stuff. And, when you take a step back and you evaluate other things in your life, you realize what makes you happy and what doesn't. And I think we landed in two very different places with the career, where you were really enjoying a lot of the things that were where we had landed and I wasn't. And that's really what it kind of came down to. It was like where my kind of path and my trajectory was. I had to really evaluate, like, what are these things that are making me happy? And for me, as much as I loved sharing my life on social and I loved exploring like when I talked about my anxiety or my boobs, how many people like could relate or change. Like that was my favorite part, honestly, that I knew that there was, whether it was a laugh or I was making a difference in someone's life, I don't fucking know. But if that meant a lot to me, but then it was just compounded with so much other pressure for being online and sharing our lives. So I didn't love social, right? And that's kind of where I landed. And it was such a big part of our brand. And it was a big way to promote the brand. And it was just really hard. And when I was going through something private, I couldn't be in that mindset. So that's, that was hard. So for me, it would be like, I have to find a balance with that because that was making me unhappy. And also like I landed in a position where for me, I was manufacturing and kind of heading that up in the buying, which I'd been doing forever. And, we do together, but we kind of had our own roles. And where our business was going with manufacturing, that also just didn't feel like it was like something I loved to do or was in the right mindset or that passionate about.
Right.
And I feel like where you were kind of like shining in a lot of your roles. So it was just hard because we were in just different places. And when people say, why do brands, what happens? There's relationships, there's whatever, and we'll let you chime in, Zoe. But like, it was just one of those things where, and it's shitty because when there's so much personal impact, when it's such an intimate brand, when their sister-in-laws working together, all those things come into play. It wasn't like I was feeling like this walking into like a big corporate office and just sitting, it was just like every decision I made really impacted everyone at our company, including you, including our employees. And that was a lot of pressure on me in like a hard way. But so that, and I deal with that all the time, right? There's a lot of guilt with that. Like we can talk about it. We designed like the most amazing collection for spring and we got it yesterday and it was incredible. Like it's incredible, a lot of these pieces we designed. So it's like, we're just, we are really in a crossroads and it was something that we did stop a little suddenly given the circumstances. But like you said, we were a brand, right? And there were opportunities for us individually to keep on doing things or not. And we decided together that that's not what we wanted to do in terms of continuing at Annie and Ren, right? But I feel like now, I don't know, you're looking at me with these eyes.
I'm just trying not to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Maybe let Zoe chime in and then I can kind of speak to it. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's such an interesting dynamic for so many reasons. Like when you have co-founders, there's always a dynamic there. And then you add in family and so many other things and two really different sets of interests. And so, there's so much equity in your brand. You've been building it for so long. And I feel like that's amazing. And there's an opportunity at this crossroads for both of you to think independently about what it is that you really want in this next chapter. And then to come back together and say, like, where did those two things line up? And is there a creative way that we can take the things that I love and the things that you love and bring them together in some way?
Yeah. 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 No, listen, I agree. I think it became hard because, I did love what I do. Like I did love what I was doing at Annie and Ren. Like I love the marketing. I love the partnerships. I love the content. And that was really enjoyable. And in the end, I did feel like our brand was really us. Like I felt like the power in our brand was the both of us.
And it was really hard on you to carry our brand by yourself. Like I recognize that. I think everyone did. Like I think that was a very hard position for you to be in. And I appreciate that you were able to do that because I wasn't present and we couldn't drop the brand. I mean, we felt the obligation to what we had built and our followers to still, keep up what was going on. So it wasn't easy on you, and you probably got a taste of that if you want to continue doing that. Without, it was just different. There was a dynamic there, when it's a shared dynamic versus not, but that it's not always easy, right? It's like,
no, for sure.
Sharing an account, two people, two brand, like one brand, two visions on a lot of things. Like we came together on so much and I think it was amazing, but it's just one of those, it's interesting, especially the way social has now panned out in life and like how it plays such a prevalent role.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot with you going on. I think it was everything. It wasn't just like, I'm unhappy with what I'm doing. You had a lot of personal stuff going on.
I know, but truthfully, and for me, I can honestly say I don't love, and I know this is a great tool and it works for so many people. It works for me. I see girls that wearing those jeans and I click and I buy them. But for me, the selling through Instagram and being that type of commodity, like it just, I didn't let, and it was creative and the reels were fun, but then I was like, the fact that had become our job and it was hard to take a step back because it was making us money.
Yeah, we became
So-
we became influencers, which wasn't that was how we could sell
I
clothing.
can't even like say that.
Content creators.
Yeah, but it's like you became influencers without going out and intending to become influencers. Like it kind of
and
happened.
I think it turned into maybe not the way that we wanted to become influencers necessarily. Like you said, you liked influencing the community in certain things, but with clothing, it just became like
Right. And
not
I think
what you
maybe
signed
that's
up for.
where we had to kind of just say with the brand, like it's either going to continue the way we were doing it or we're going to have to do something vastly different. But we didn't know at the time. And the only thing kind of I felt strongly about was that I didn't want to continue doing just the few same things that were making me that unhappy. And that's all I could speak to. Right. So we had to just kind of, and as much as that felt selfish, once again, we had to devise and make a plan from there. And that's what we did. And it's natural. I think I feel like you're feeling quite lost because as much as it was a team decision too, it was a lot. You know, you had to deal with a lot of my shit.
Well, I think it was just it wasn't even that. I think it was more that it was quick.
Yeah, it was a
Do you know
lot,
what I
and it
mean?
happened. And
It was
one day
fast.
you were carrying the whole weight of the business, doing it all day. It's being like stopping, and it was something you enjoyed doing too. So that's a really like. So it was like we were trying to figure out how it could continue, but it's not that easy. So,
So what do you recommend, Zoe? What's your
Let me
take?
tell you what to
What's
do
your
next.
take?
No, I mean, I really do think that there's such a huge opportunity for both of you to say, okay, what's next? And what would I be really excited about? And like, just allow that to settle in, like give yourselves a little bit of space to figure that out.
Yeah. I do think there is like this pressure of like figure shit out tomorrow. And listen, not everyone also has the luxury of taking a minute to figure their things out. And
100%.
right. And
Yeah.
we're lucky enough we can take a minute and the time to figure it out. But yeah, I mean, do you recommend, like, I know you said, okay, like carte blanche, just figure out what you love. So I feel like there is this kind of like this school of thought where it's like, on the one hand, it's like, do what you absolutely love, find what you are passionate about and pursue it. And then there's the other school of thought that it's like, you know, your work is your work and you should enjoy it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be your passion and you can separate the two. Like,
Called a job for a reason.
yeah, but seriously, but I do think that
It's really hard to do that not in a voice. I like slightly
you
changed
crushed
my
it.
voice, but it was like
slightly deep, but it wasn't husky.
just letting you know. Conscious efforts over here.
But your school of thought is for a starting point for people who feel like I want something, but I just start with what do you love? What are you passionate about?
Yeah. And for some people, that isn't immediately obvious. Or to your point, sometimes that isn't necessarily a luxury that everyone has. And so if it isn't, and you do need a job and something that's going to pay the bills in the short term, it's like, what can you do that will pay the bills, that will also give you some space in your life to engage in the things that you really love, so that at the end of the day, you're actually feeling like you're fueled instead of just drained all the time.
Right.
Like burnout comes from when people are grinding, doing something that they hate doing, and that's all they're giving their energy to. Like it's just draining your tank.
Right. But I like that. I think that's really good advice. Try to find something where your passions meet your skill set. And do you recommend like starting with a list? Like if someone is just like, where the hell? Okay, great. Passion, skill set. You make a list of what you love, a list of what you're good at, and go from there.
Yeah. Yeah. That can be a really good place to start.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed that came up for you was like the discomfort of not knowing. And I feel like there's something in just getting comfortable with being like, you know what? Like I'm actually just taking a little bit of space to figure that out.
To even say that, everyone's like, what's the next step? People are like, so what are you guys planning? I'm doing it again. What?
That was like you sounded like Dracula. You're like, what am I planning?
Who are these people that are talking about
And what's
it?
interesting is like when we used to work in our showroom, like me and V always used to do like voices and accents.
It was
and
so
you were
annoying.
like,
It was like they'd speak in these like New Zealand accents all day long. And I'd be like, do it. It's actually annoying. So everyone knows. And then the whole, everyone started doing it. And I was like the only person that wasn't speaking in an accent. And I felt left out, but it was, come on.
you can do it now. It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, right.
They, what? I actually,
Yeah, what are you asking V for?
now I feel like it's going to be a mishmash of like five different accents.
Ask V what?
V, where's the phone? Someone's on the call. V, Lanny,
Give us more.
I can't. Where's the
It was literally
Some
every
food
day.
on the bobby. It was every day. It was every day and it was a lot. And you would never join in on, anyways, we're really getting off topic here, but you never join in on the accents. And now it's
I
like
have
they're
1,000
coming out.
different
Well, I
accents.
see, we said we swapped spots and it's like you're really going ham on the accents.
Also, it seems like voices are a shared passion. So maybe something to look at.
Add that to the list. What were we talking about now? I've lost my train of thought.
Where passion meets your skill set.
Oh no, you were saying with the uneasiness. No, so I think that's a big thing. So now, I honestly, since basically
10 minutes
everything
ago.
is happened in January, I wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. I cannot go back to sleep. And it's like this like floating anxiety that's just like hanging over me of like, what am I doing? Again, because I think it's like for our business, my identity was so tied to the brand.
Right.
Like when we go out, it's like Ren. Like I still feel like when I'm out, people are like, "Oh, it's like you're recognizable within this kind of like little community." So it's just, yeah, it is a lot of uneasiness. But I think to your point, sitting in that uneasiness is okay. Just being like, I'm accepting this. I don't know what's happening, and that's also okay.
Yeah.
But I think the anxiety is a big thing because I can see it with people in my life who I'm very close to. It's like they have a lot of anxiety around just the uncertainty about their careers.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I actually have what you have times, and I'm not even trying to be like, but that's how I feel about my life.
Yeah, no.
With
there's
like
no
my
point-
like
yeah.
partner's life, with the future of my kids, am I doing? So that is even why it's like I don't even know. Work is one slice of it for me, but with that, it's like, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, tit for tat at all. I just even mean like, and I'm such
Yours
a
is
control,
on a total different
I'm
scale.
such a control freak with certain things like that, and used to routine, and I thrive off of that. So I completely relate, and I feel like I've had to like just completely almost like surrender to it in a weird way, which like feels also quite horrible. But I think my meds are really helping with that. At least to keep it like stable, truthfully, because it's just like that's when like there'd be a pit in my stomach and I'd be like, not, like that general anxiety, like localized anxiety that you would have from any situation. This is a very new situation for you, you know?
Right. Well, I was also going to suggest like Ryan, I know you don't have a mic. Maybe we should pass the mic to Ryan because he's doing this. You're also launching a new business. Like, do you want to talk about that? Like there's a lot going on in your life professionally.
Yeah, I'm freaking out a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thought of working for somebody again for another year is enough to motivate me to do whatever I have to do to create my own situation.
To kick it into high gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also let's plug.
Yeah. We were going to do a little ad ski for Ryan. He is launching a landscaping business. He's going to be doing some landscaping for Lan and I.
Holler.
It's Burly Man Landscaping. It is not.
What's the branding that we're working on for that? RTF.
rtflandscapes.com. Okay, so we talked about the uneasiness. We talked about, I actually have a question. What are your thoughts, Zoe, on manifesting? I'm like, I feel like, do I need to write shit down? Instagram's telling me to. Everyone's like, I wrote down that I wanted a Range Rover and one appeared in my driveway a week later. Like people are manifesting the shit out of their careers and their lives. And I'm just curious from a career life coach, if you're like, yep, if you write it down, it will happen. Or you're like, nah, don't do it.
Okay. I'm a huge fan of writing. I think it is a really powerful way to get thoughts from your conscious and your subconscious out on paper. So if you have a journal and a pen and you start writing and you give yourself a prompt, as long as you're not trying to control what's coming out, often there will be thoughts that will come out that you're like, oh, interesting. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it that way, but that is definitely.
What's giving yourself a prompt to? Like
Yeah.
just saying like, if you're feeling like anxious, you'd write anxious. Or if you felt like there was something you said, like what would be a prompt or like work today? Or
Okay. An example
Yeah.
from kind of what we've been talking about, like for you, Lauren, might be like, what's in the discomfort of this space? Like, what is uncomfortable about that for me?
Right.
Oh, like
And just kind of like
questions.
letting
Okay,
it
yeah.
come out.
Right. Versus just writing, like always have some kind of question. And it doesn't just have to be like, where do I see myself in 2 years or what do I love? It can be like, why am I anxious today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
Yeah, I think I was actually having problems with the prompts because I was like,
what's that?
people like, what what comes to your head? I'm like, sunshine? I'm like, where's this getting? Like, I didn't really understand the point of the what like. It was like, I love lamp. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be saying right now, but it's kind of like more internal searching.
Yeah.
Got it. Like asking yourself, why am I writing in my journal right now at 5 a.m.?
Yeah.
As I feel this way. Like, right.
And this is the question that's on my mind. So now I'm going to actually ask myself that question and then answer
you know what
it.
might be good for you, if you don't want to roll out of bed at 3, if that's when you're up, and if you don't want to turn on your phone, you can just keep those questions and then you can write it the next day.
Yeah.
Like if you're thinking about it, why, like sometimes I'm like, oh, this is a new feeling for me or something. And I just will keep it in my notepad.
Right.
But if you don't have time, because often with the kids, you don't have time to do that. Or like, I don't know, unless you want to get up at 3, but you might want to try to go back to sleep. But then that could be a good prompt the next morning.
Yeah. I feel like I'd be scared of someone like finding the journal. Someone finding it and reading it.
I got wasted the other day and read my journal.
To who?
Like a random friend and two random people.
Oh.
Like at an AP. It was really not a good look. And they're like, stop. And it was like purpose. And I was like, I don't know why I'm doing this. This feels like I have a boundary problem. Like, why are you reading your journal? Thank God they were like close friends of friends, but
You're like, it was a friend of
not even a friend.
Thank God they were close friends of a friend of a friend. Eek.
So yeah, there's a
Felt really
problem.
appropriate.
Maybe you need a lock.
Yeah, I think I got to get a lock, but I like that. I think I want to start doing that more. I feel like I'm intimidated by the whole by the whole writing process. Like even just getting started feels like a lot.
I feel you. I've started doing it. It felt like I also am a very I don't write a lot. If I'm taking notes, I typically do it on my phone now. So it's just not a method that I'm typically used to doing too.
Right.
I feel like you do write more notes
but a little journal.
But it's also, I think there is actually something to not typing to actually writing, right?
Yeah, writing.
It is completely different. So I've started to do it and I totally feel you. It is weird at the beginning. And like I said, I was totally going off with the wrong prompts, but I was also doing mine was kind of a mix of what I was to focus on. For me, there's so much uncertainty and there's so much negative stuff that I could be like, oh, this is a lot or this is overwhelming.
Right.
So this is cheesy, but I do just try to focus on the things that are good. So those are kind of, as much as I was joking about the sunshine, those are kind of my prompts. So it's not gratitude journal, but just in general, this is great that I was able to put Xander to bed tonight and we didn't have a tantrum or just those little things, those little wins that I was just you need to stop and acknowledge. And they say the more you do that, the brain,
It does.
the neural paths start to change, right?
Yeah.
It's all about just doing those things and saying them and being consistent.
Totally. The more you lean into gratitude, the more you're rewiring your brain for happiness and gratitude. And so this is, I didn't fully answer your question about manifesting, but to your question, it's a complicated question because I think that there are issues of privilege that come up that are really valid.
Yeah.
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 And 100%, we are all energy and energy. I really believe in energetics. And so if you come up with whatever your vision is and say this is where I want to be in 5 years, and you do write it out and you write it from a place of it's already happened. So you're this is where I'm at 5 years from now.
You go to the present tense for future present tense.
Yeah, exactly.
You act like you already own it.
It's already
that's
happened.
such a boss status.
Yes.
Today, I went to a business meeting at Apple.
Yes. And then act from a place of it's happened.
Right.
So then it's okay,
Whoa.
what does
feel
this
like.
person 5 years from now who's living this vision, how does she show up in the world?
Right.
And so then you start to show up from that
Oh,
place.
that's
perspective.
crazy. I know people say that, but
is cool.
I never really.
I think the Foster sisters are big on that. I've heard that that's how they do
Sarah, I
it.
think,
Sarah
did
is
that.
well,
she had that one specific example.
She'll write in a journal exactly to your point, Zoe, where it's writing from the perspective of that success that you've had or that you want to have in the future.
Yeah. So I'm opening a new business.
Right.
And we are opening our first location in Toronto in the fall.
Yeah.
And we have a global vision and we plan to open many locations globally.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about this as our first location. Already, it's not a question in my mind that we're opening multiple locations. And to me, it's already done.
Right.
You're I'm launching a brand, a national global brand, and this is our first location. That's how you just said it. That's very cool. Versus how if I was doing it, I'd be I'm really nervous. There's gonna be a baby, but it's just it's literally
It is the
all
energy.
how you.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. But then what I attract is people who are oh, cool. Okay. I want to partner with you
be
on
a
this
part of a global brand,
Right.
Versus one location in Toronto, which is but it's exactly that.
Yeah. And so my business partner and I have these people coming out of the woodworks being like, we'd love to be practitioners. We'd love to work with you. Like, how can we collaborate? And which we're super excited about. But it's also because we're so clear on what the vision is and we're living from a place where it's already real.
And what's your business partner, similar background or?
She's actually a coach too. Yeah. She also came from corporate, went into coaching.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Do you recommend people like go into is it a friend?
Yeah.
So I'm actually curious about that because I feel like even when we had Annie and Ren, so, listen, a lot of people want to pursue the entrepreneurial route and oftentimes they'll go into business with family or friends. You're going into business with a friend. What's your stance on that? Like, do you guys have different roles, different boundaries? Because I feel like that can, it can be challenging for so many different reasons.
Yeah. I mean, it can be really challenging for different reasons. I've coached co-founders where it's going really well and also where it's not going well at all. And I think there are a couple of, I think that you really have to be aligned and clear that you're on the same page and really open communication and openness on both parts to feedback. And I think both people have to have a similar style in terms of how they show up and, or like work well.
Right. You can't have someone working like 80% and the other 20%.
Yeah.
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 And having those conversations at the outset of exactly those points. I think that's really good advice.
A lot of people don't consider those things when going in,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's work skills that need to be aligned. And then there's actually your raw talent, right?
Yeah.
Like how you work together, but then actually what you bring to the table.
For sure. And a lot of the stickiness ends up coming up where people aren't communicating. So it's why I say communication, I think, is the biggest thing and like a growth mindset. If one partner is able to say to the other one, hey, you know what, I feel like I'm showing up at 80% and you're showing up at 20%, then being able to have a conversation about that and understand where each person is coming from is really important.
Right.
This is one of my kind of key takeaways for anyone. I look at partnership as 100-100. So I think each person has to show up with their 100% and it's going to look different every day, right? So Lanny, you were just going through a lot. Your 100 was going to look different than how it looked a year before. Right. And your 100 was going to look different in that time where you were kind of picking 100%. Up slack and stepping up.
Yeah. And when I had 4 little kids, my 100 was not 100 and Lanny. Yeah. And there was honestly never, I feel like on either of our parts.
No, I think
that was the one thing. We have a very similar work ethic. Yeah. And I think that there was never any resentment with when I was in different phases of my life or when you were in different phases of your life, it was you knew. It was
that's also because I think for so many years, there was so much passion for both of us.
Yeah.
Too. So it was nice because we were passionate and that aligned, And I think that makes a really good team. I think you're, and I think that's where we had a lot of success.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that we didn't have failures, but by the end where our business was too, we were also in a, in terms of what you said, it was coming to terms with what you're actually being able to say to the other person. I don't actually love what I'm doing in that role anymore,
Yep.
And you do. So where can we go from here? Mm-hmm. And that's going to look different for every person, right? But yeah, everyone says it's really interesting because at the end of the day for us, careers are so important, but family and friends and all that kind of when you are working together, you have to kind of draw a line. What's going to take the high road? What's going to, to me at least, I was always, you have to have that in your back.
Yeah.
So
that you prioritize, prioritize the relationship, but listen, not everybody does. And there have been plenty of people who have had falling outs over working together.
But I think we're at where we are because we communicate well.
Yeah.
I don't think, I was comfortable enough and open enough to talk to you about it. We came to the decision together. We're figuring out the solution together, whether it's together or apart. And that's because we are, and I do think that's always been a strength. It's not always been easy.
Yeah.
But at least we've addressed most of the things, even if they didn't need to be addressed. You and I are but then, I'm brushed my hair.
Lanny.
Or my cup. I don't know. But.
Yeah. We've had some good cry sessions, particularly on the corner. There was one just really public one.
We had one blowout. We had one blowout in Summerhill. Yeah. Right at the corner.
It was such a public.
It was a big one.
Yeah.
And were we screaming?
Were we screaming?
Maybe one of us was.
There were a lot of tears. But listen, it's a business. It's it is emotional. And there's a lot on the line and there's a lot of time invested, we were both out of the house on the weekends when our kids were, it's not just
Yeah. No, I think that for like the biggest takeaway, and I think it's sometimes the answer isn't going to be there the next day. Most people have to figure out their shit. It's going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take resources. It's going to take, it's not just like something just always falls into your lap.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of keeping, it seems like no matter if you're manifesting or if you're having to pick up a second job or another career to get you where, it's just keeping your eye on the prize is what it sounds like. Keeping really like to Ryan's point, like if he doesn't want to work for them and he knows what he wants to do and he can do that, like it's just sticking to that. And if it's, you get, 10 clients over the next 10 years, it's great. But if you get 10 in 1 year, that's even better. Like it's like, you don't know how it's going to unfold, but it's as long as that last piece is always there. And I think that it has to be coupled somewhat with passion. Even if you don't like your job, there has to be something about what you do every day that brings you joy.
Yeah.
'Cause I think everyone's capable of bringing joy to their life. Like there is something that makes everyone tick that's different than that next person. I really feel that way. So if they can somewhat figure out how to
tie in what they love.
Right.
Yeah.
I also feel like the biggest thing for me right now, and I don't know if you recommend this too, is talking to as many people as possible. Like people are so willing to sit down if you are like, I want to learn more about this, or I'm interested in this, or, I think if you're very specific about the kinds of things you want to talk about, like I have met with so many amazing people in all different areas who are so willing to have a coffee, have a chat over the phone. And same with me, like I actually randomly, this girl at Mani Petty, she follows Annie and Ren, and she was like starting a clothing line, and this was months ago, and she was like, can I like chat with you for 20 minutes? I have samples. I'm like, of course.
Right.
I'm like, I mean, our business is not really a thing right now, but yeah, no, she was just like, she was looking for someone to talk to. And I was like, that's so ballsy.
Yeah.
And I was so impressed. I was like, of course, if I can be that person, but I think to just talk to whoever is so helpful.
Yeah. And speaking of getting outside of your comfort zone, for a lot of people, it's not comfortable. And it's like, do it anyway for the sake of, it's why having that bigger vision is so important, because everything that we were just talking about, everything that you were just saying, Lanny, is like, if you know that that's what you're working towards, even if you are picking up that second job or you are reaching out to people or cold calling or being like, hey, like you do this thing that I'm interested in, can we chat? It's all in service of the bigger vision, and it's moving you in that direction. So even if the road is kind of winding, you're, that you're working your way there. It's like it's that like languishing where people are kind of like, I don't actually know what I want. And so I'm just, then you feel really stuck.
You know what I think it also is? It's just people don't know what their passions are.
Yeah.
Full stop. So they don't even know where to start. Like they might, you have someone that's really great, was an account, I don't know, good in math, but like doesn't know what it, like, or she or he doesn't know what the passions are. So it's like, where do I even go? Like, I like playing tennis. I'm not going to be a professional tennis player. Like, I feel like it takes a lot to understand yourself.
For sure. And we're so tied to, like, we're not raised to think about all of the endless possibilities that are out there. It's like, do you want to become a doctor or a lawyer, a firefighter or an engineer or a teacher or whatever? And so people kind of confine themselves to those boxes, whereas truthfully, like, we can actually do anything that we want. We just have to create the possibility and then bring it to life.
Right. There you go.
It sounds like I got a lot of work to do.
Like my anxiety just.
The other thing that I told myself, which is I think a big thing too, is like the truth is, because I feel like there's also this like external pressure that I see like on myself that everyone's like, well, what's the next phase? But the truth is no one cares.
Yeah.
No one actually cares what I'm doing, what you're like, no one cares except us. Like right. And I think like I just have to keep also reminding myself that like the pressure is literally just coming from me. Like people are so self-interested. They just care about their lives, what they're doing, their families. Like, yes, whatever happened might have been gossip for a minute in the community, but then people move on and don't care.
That's why you got to just do you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like literally why, because it's like people, you can't control that also.
Yeah.
And people do say, you tell me all the time, people come up to you and are like, what? Like, give us more. We want to see this. I do think some people care, but it's just like, do you care?
Yeah.
Do you care enough then to show them that?
Yeah.
And like, I'm like, nah.
Yeah, but you're absolutely right. And as long as you own your answer, whatever it is, nobody does care, right?
Yeah.
It's like the waffling where people are like, what's actually going on there?
Yeah.
You're like, I'm taking space to figure it out. They're like, cool, that's
It's just
awesome.
so you know what it is? You're very certain in your words, Zoe. Like you're articulate, number one, but you're very like, you speak concisely and you speak very like, I just, you know what I mean? You get it out. I like verbal diarrhea for hours. I appreciate how you speak.
Thanks.
It's to the point. It gets, and it's like, it's true. It's like, it's confident. It's like, if you tell them that, just tell yourself what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Anyways, I like this. I like really was kind of not nervous about talking with you, because it's so natural. But I was like,
You were like, I'm going to cry today.
well, I know. I just was like, what are we doing? Because like I just out of what your career is, you're a career coach, and we're like, but that's the whole point of this. And I think we got through some like really like simple takeaways that for at least me right now, it's just easier to like walk through life in a like more baller status, like feeling good about things,
Yeah, I think it's dealing with the uneasiness, how to properly maybe manifest or write down things that you want, looking at your passions and your skill set. Like, I think those are all amazing takeaways.
Yeah. And then like feeling like it won't happen tomorrow. So it's just like being okay with that.
Yeah, but maybe the next day, in like 2 days.
Next weekend.
Fuck. Okay, thanks so much, Zoe.
Thanks, guys.
I really loved having you on.
It was great.